Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax so we can chat about all of the things that are going on in the stars above us for the weekend. It is Friday, or as we usually say, Fry-yay. I noticed that things are moving slowly this morning. I don't know if that's kind of part of the energy of the day or if that's just right now. Like when I pushed live or go live, it took a second, like longer than usual to go live. So I don't know what that's all about, but hopefully all of you are able to join in. This morning, we have a bit to talk about. The biggest news, of course, of the weekend is Saturn's move into retrograde motion tomorrow. And we'll talk about that for the bulk of the time today. But as well, there are some minor things going on as well that are kind of couched in with the bigger news of Saturn turning retrograde. And those things are sextiles. So there's some harmonizing energy out there. And it's not that Saturn's move into retrograde is a negative thing. It really isn't. But anytime a planet is about to change direction, um, and literally, it doesn't do this. I mean, it's not like Saturn suddenly swishes to a different direction. But from our perception here on Earth, we see it as moving backwards through the zodiac, right? Because we're the faster moving body. We've moved ahead of Saturn. And for us, he seems to be, going away from us, even though we are the ones that are moving away from him. I hope that makes sense. But at any rate, anytime a planet is about to change, there's that wonky period. It's almost like, when a fast moving object, a car speeds past you, and you kind of feel that energy of that motion as it happens. And so when we have a planet changing direction, we also kind of get that feeling of something's changed, right? In this case, it's almost like, the planet is in what we call stationary mode and has been moving forward. It comes to stationary, meaning it's not moving much, or it's not changing direction yet. And then we perceive it starting to move backwards. So if you were walking forward and then suddenly pivoted and decided to take the next step going back the way you came, that's the feeling that we get, right? And it does give us sort of a feeling of going back to places that we've already been. And, that can be disconcerting for some people because you think, oh, damn, I thought I had this handled and now it's back in my face. But it can also bridge us into a better expression, shall I say, of the energy of the planet involved. So the planet is Saturn in this case. And then that's followed on Monday by Neptune turning retrograde. So we have a couple of swishes going on in a very short period of time. I don't think we'll get to Neptune retrograde today. We'll talk about that on Monday morning because it actually happens on Monday afternoon, I think, sometime. And now we're adding two planets that are changing direction, really literally on top of one another. So it can feel disconcerting. It can feel tense. I noticed people calling me yesterday or reaching out to me on text with anxieties or feeling pressure, and oftentimes that is a symptom of a planet that is changing direction. An important planet, Saturn, brings us the duty, the responsibility, the structure, the form, the foundation. And in Pisces, that's been a foundation of our spiritual path, of who we truly are, of the walls that we've built around ourselves for protection that need to come down. So it engenders quite a few different fears and so forth. I mean, you may not feel a fear personally, like I'm not afraid I'm gonna fall off the earth, or I'm not afraid I'm gonna, fill in the blank. But the outer world has been engendering fear. I mean, people are sitting with bated breath waiting for the Supreme Court here in the US to bring down certain decisions, right? And there's this, oh, thank God they did that, or now what are we going to do? Because they've made a decision that we didn't like or that has engendered some kind of fear. And that's really kind of the nature of the changeover here, is that Saturn is a planet plopped right in the middle between the inner planets, Mars, Venus, Mercury, the sun, the moon, and the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and all of the other gals that are out there, Ceres and Eris and all of those. So it's more of a societal type of change. So the fears about our being in this culture or being in society and society's rules that are changing or not changing, such as the case may be, that would be the source of some of the dis-ease that we're feeling, right? So we're going to dig deeper into that, and I'll talk about how that does impact you personally. But then we also have, like I said, the two sextile transits to talk about: Venus sextile Mars, a very good one, and Mercury sextile Uranus, another good one, right? That are kind of sandwiched, one before the Saturn return, or yeah, Saturn retrograde, and one after the Saturn retrograde. And then, of course, we'll talk about our moons. But first, let's say good morning to everybody checking in. The first person I saw this morning was Diana S. She says, "Good morning from a drizzly New Orleans." Good morning. It is good to have you with us. And then Christine Buckingham, good morning to you. Terry, it's if it's something I'm screwed, I pray it's all positive. Dreamy event for this reflector, right? So, Terry, all you can do is reflect, right? You don't have, I mean, you're the mirror that everybody wants to have in their midst, because you and your relative health and ease reflect to us where things are out of order, right? That's the reflector's job, really, right? Because you really are only able to do that, to reflect back to us. So having a reflector that's healthy and wealthy and wise is a reflection of all of the people that are around you. And when you're not feeling good or when you're having issues, that's a reflection too of the relative energy of the people around you, as well as the collective. So I hope that helps. Joan Durchie, good morning to you. Narges, good morning to you. Christine says, observe, don't absorb. Attitude would come in handy. And observe, don't absorb attitude would come in healthy, handy and healthy. There you go. Speaking of that, I just wanted to give you all a heads up. I I used to do a lot of interviews with authors and different people that I thought were interesting that I wanted to bring in. And it wasn't always received the best because people wanted to hear me and not me talking about someone else. But was reached out to by a, publishing publicist company about a new book that has come out, and I was intrigued by it. So I said, yes, I want to interview this woman about this book. And the book is called Everyday Awakening: 5 practices for living fully, feeling deeply, and coming into your heart and soul. And the author's name is Catherine Duncan. So, Catherine is going to be with me on July 29th. So, it's a little bit into the future, but the book is available already on Amazon or your favorite bookseller, even from, I believe, maybe from her website. I ended up getting this from the publisher, but um, I wanted to talk about this because this line by Mel Robbins really got to me. And this was just a blurb, like a little mini review testimonial at the top. And it says, "Your roadmap to living a fully engaged life. Catherine teaches you how to stop sleepwalking through your life and start living it." Whoa. I feel like I've been sleepwalking through my life somewhat. And of course, that hit me. And of course, that also sounds a little bit like Saturn in Pisces in some ways. And so I thought you would enjoy this as well. So she will be with me on the 29th to talk about the book and her process in bringing that book to us. And there are some really interesting, there's a whole bunch of different exercises in the book to help you engage being in the now. She calls it a master list of exercises and bringing us back to the present moment, connecting with something greater, etc., things like that. So I thought it doesn't fit astrologically necessarily, but in the greater metaphysical context of our lives here, it's perfect. So, all right. So today, the other things we want to talk about is the moon having moved this morning into the sign of Aries. It'll be on my YouTube channel, Christine. I will be broadcasting her interview live on Monday, I believe, July 29th. And let's hope that there's not a whole huge lot of astrology stuff to have to talk about that day. Even if there is, we'll get through it, right? But I really want to talk to her. So the moon now is in the sign of Aries. That's revving us up somewhat. Aries is a sign ruled by Mars. It's energetic, it's dynamic, and it's influencing the moon's connection to our emotions and our actions that are from, an inner perspective and our personal interactions, right? So, Aries being a fire sign ruled by Mars, it's known for its assertiveness, enthusiasm, true, and its pioneering spirit. And the moon, of course, represents the emotions and instincts and subconscious drives that each of us have. So, Aries' fiery energy in with the moon brings us heightened activity and impulsive reactions. So, right in that, you already see we have some thinking to do before we jump out at things. So, here are some of the key themes of the moon moving through the sign of Aries. One, the moon here is action oriented. Aries encourages the proactive steps that we take and the action oriented approach to living our lives, essentially, right? So, all of us may feel a surge of energy or a strong desire to take the initiative and do something. Right. My daughter, first off this morning, called and said, "Oh, hey, I have a whole load of rock being delivered tonight. She's building a waterfall in her backyard or a pond. Uh, anybody that wants to come over and help, I'll feed you pizza." I mean, really, like, okay, we're going to take action. We're going to build this thing. And that is how we might all be feeling. It's also a good time to start new projects. You have this energy of oomph going with you. It also gives us a boost in our confidence and also the courage to take action, maybe to take new action in our lives where we have avoided doing that, perhaps, or where we have backpedaled somewhat from doing what we really wanted to do. So it's an excellent time for us to tackle the challenges and to assert ourselves in various situations in various ways, right? But we do also have this energy called impulsiveness that is a part of it, spontaneity that is also a part of it. So emotions are felt intensely during this time. This is the moon in Aries, right? So we feel these emotions intensely and we may express them spontaneously. So we want to be careful with that because it can lead to conflict and confrontation, right? So we want to watch that. We have a strong desire for independence during this period of time. Um, it's almost like we may feel very much the need to break away from anything that we interpret as holding us down or any constraints to our individuality. So we're dealing with that from the emotional level, and the emotion of codependence or the emotion of being dependent are things that you'll want to work through during this period of time. So, intense feelings, direct communication of those feelings with others. Again, though, let me just give my little, spiel on the throat center of the human design that the the things that we say to other people really are sort of needing to be invited out of us. So you might have you might experience intense emotions about something that somebody is saying or doing, but that just because the moon is in Aries doesn't mean that you get to just spew whatever it is that comes up. But our tendency is to want to do that, right? We don't think about it. We act first, think later, speak first, then go, ooh, why did I say that, right? So we want to be very careful about that and make sure that we have the opening or the invitation to speak frankly about something, or we might risk creating a conflict between ourselves and other people. But we are likely to feel more able to speak directly to whatever it is that's bothering us. And that can translate to zero patience for beating around the bush, as it were. We want to go straight to the heart of something. Just be aware of that tendency and don't insert foot in mouth if you can help it during the weekend. Actually, the moon is in Aries all the way until Sunday morning when it transitions into Taurus. So, for the next few days, right? Take care. And it's a time for us to focus on new beginnings or a fresh start in some way. This might be ideal for initiating a project, taking the next step on a goal that you have, embarking on a new adventure. Fire signs love adventure. And maybe using the Aries pioneering spirit to break into new energy or new experiences, things that you've wanted to do, but you've held yourself back. Right? It's time to really live your life in full color. That's the moon in Aries, living life in color. Wasn't there a show one time called Living Color? Hmm. Anyway, some of the practical applications of the moon here. One, take initiative, right? Take the first step. Start something, right? If you've been saying that you wanted to clean out that closet, well, take the first step, right? Open the door and then maybe maybe close it if it's too overwhelming. But maybe just take out a few things at a time. You don't have to go all in, but if you don't open the door to the closet, you'll never know what you could accomplish. Set clear, actionable goals, right? I'm going to clean this closet. I'm going to spend 30 minutes on this closet, right? And then I'm going to go outside and play, or I'm going to go play in the garden, whatever it is. Open communication, be open, be honest, be direct, but make sure you have the invitation to do so, right? You don't need to hurt people's feelings. Channel your passionate emotions into your passionate work or into things that excite you or that you're excited about, right? Manage impulsiveness. Think before acting. So hard to do sometimes, right? But think, especially when the moon is in Aries, but think before you act. This can help you avoid unnecessary conflicts or mistakes or accidents. Mars, being the ruler here, does rule accidents. So find healthy outlets for your energy, right? What can I do with this energy that would be healthy, that would feel like fun, that might be different than what I normally do, and take action in that way. And embrace concepts like independence, self reliance, self sufficiency. Explore all the ways in which you are maybe waiting for others to take action before you do something that you want. All of this is moon and Aries kind of stuff. And above all, the challenges to watch for managing anger and frustration, right? I know my manifesting generators, and manifestors all have frustration and anger as their kind of not self, right? When I'm not working my life in the correct way, those are the emotions that pop up in my field. So temper control. Make sure that you are being, practicing peace, taking deep breaths, right? If you get triggered, don't just blurt. Conflict resolution, right? Maybe you be mindful about how any conflicts are handled. Avoid being impulsive. That knee jerk reaction does not make for healthy relationships or for a feel good feeling, right? Consider the consequences of your actions or of your words before you say them. Take a balanced approach. Strive for that balance that combines that spontaneity with thoughtful planning, right? I'm not saying that you have to, create a 10-point plan to do something or a 10-point plan for a conversation, but maybe one or 2 points so that you don't just like throw everything at a situation. So the moon in Aries is a very good time. There's nothing wrong with this moon. It's just kind of high energy, and we can get very dynamic in the way that we express ourselves. And it's not just you, right? Other people who aren't listening to my warning here about the moon in Aries might not recognize this at all, and they are the ones that you have to contend with, right? So for you, it's on the receiving end, perhaps, of someone else's emotional upload, download, explosion, right? So be careful and watch out for others, right? And watch your own, mind your own shop, if you will, right? Mind how you react or respond to other people's anger, frustration, upset, blurting, those kinds of things. All right, now I wanted to look at the human design gates that the moon is going through today. I'm not breaking it down by all 3 days, but I just wanted to take a look at it this morning. And when I get like the inkling to do these kinds of things, I'm like, oh, okay, there must be a reason. Somebody out there needs to hear this energy of the gate 25, also known as the gate of spirit in human design. That's the gate the moon is at right this minute and will be until later in the day. And this is called the gate of spirit because it's really a gate of love. It lies on the identity center, the G center. So that is the diamond in the middle of your human design. If it is white, you have an open identity center. If it is colored in, you have it defined. An open identity center is one where you are very chameleon like. You're very influenced by the people around you. And it might be hard for you to see yourself and your true self. Um, it might be harder for you to feel love or loved or lovable. And you might also have issues around the geographic location that you're in. Like you might be someone who's very sensitive to place. And if you're in the wrong place and you're around the wrong people, it's very hard to see yourself in this light of the love of spirit. Now, if you have the center defined, it would be colored in, and that means you do have an access to your identity. You do know who you are. You still may struggle with some things. I mean, that's kind of the case of the defined centers. You struggle because you're broadcasting this identity, and it's hard for you to see yourself as anything but that, right? But we are, I can guarantee you, this conglomeration of a lot of various things. So here, this gate 25 with the moon sitting here today is offering us up or emphasizing, let's say, the themes of innocence, right? Being innocent. And innocence has a whole lot of different feel to it, right? It's a gate that's part of my incarnation cross. And every time I see innocence, I don't know what to think about it, right? But I do know what to think of unconditional love, the other gate or the other energy here, and the connection to our spiritual essence. So this gate 25 with the moon here really brings us the emotion of maybe belonging to a higher power, or being able to access your higher power in a loving way. And it's kind of a gate that is associated with this purity of intent. I think that's where innocence comes from, the purity of intent and the deeper sense of an inner truth. And therefore, this gate highlights the importance for us of returning to that purity in our actions and our intentions. Like, I think that the gate 25's innocence is about not recognizing how other people can be abusive to your goodwill, to your unconditional love, and therefore you can get taken for granted and that type of thing with that particular energy. But it is all about the spiritual connection. It encourages us to have a deeper connection to our spiritual essence, right? To the spiritual inner you, and then to engage in nurturing that spirit in whatever way, right? It might be through meditation, it might be through reading uplifting things, it might be through doing conversations with people. But it's, really bringing us closer to our higher selves in that particular gate. And every one of you have this gate. Whether it's defined or not is the difference between you and me, let's say. But right now, all of us have it defined. Okay. And this transit can also be healing, both emotionally and spiritually. And emotionally, because it's the moon sitting here, and spiritually, because that's the gate. So it's a good time to forgive. to let go of the past that hurts that you feel, or embrace a more loving and compassionate approach to life, right? So these next several hours, that is our focus. And then the moon will transit into the gate 17, a completely different feel. So have you ever noticed during the day that you're going along for several hours and you have this one like bracketed sense of what's going on and how you feel or what's possible, and followed by very quickly something different, right? A different energy, a different feel, a different emotion. Um, that's the moon, right? That is the moon changing gates in this case, because we're talking human design. We're talking the moon in the sign moving perhaps into the next decan. So all of that kind of stuff is what is our notification, if you will, right? We get notifications on our phones. It's our notification that something has changed. So now the transiting moon in the gate 17, we're moving from this heart centered place to logic, right? So there's this feeling that we go from heart and love and emotion, the feel goods, and then we go to logic, right? We go to a focus on logical thinking, onto opinions, the mental processes involved in planning and foresight. The gate 17 is called the gate of anticipation. So it's located on the ajna, which is the second center down in your human design, and it's a gate that really, or I mean, it's a center that fields all of the things that we think of as the brain activities: thinking, memory recall, data, associations with the past and the present and what's coming for the future. It's really called the center of thinking, right? So this gate, the 17, is located on the ajna, and it's associated with forming opinions based on logical patterns and anticipating future outcomes. So you can see that this day is going to have these two distinct energies around it. So the key theme here in the gate 17 is about logical analysis. We might all get more into our thinking minds later. Like right now, we might be in the warm fuzzies, and a little bit later, we're going to be in the head, right? It's our ability to think logically. And it's time to trust your mental processes and use your analytical skills effectively, but you don't make decisions from that logical process. We don't make decisions from the mind. As often as we are told, think first, act later, or uh, uh, analyze the pros and the cons and then decide. We don't decide from the mind. The mind only has the capability of comparing and contrasting, or thinking, or comparing the highs and the lows. Those kinds of things are active in the mind, but that's not where we make the decision from. Okay. I hope that's you guys understand that. But this particular gate does kind of encourage us to anticipate the future. So there's a possibility of foresight and planning that we're looking at. So I expect later this afternoon, we're all kind of looking forward to the future and what actions we might take and that kind of thing. This transit also supports our sharing opinions, engaging in discussions and debates. Maybe last night's presidential debate should have happened later today. They might have done better. And it allows us to express our logical viewpoints and to contribute to collective understanding. That's why we talk, right? We talk because we want to be understood. And we talk because, we maybe are, wanting to express our ideas and our opinions. That's the gate 17. Okay. And in that, we are needing to be taking care that we're not overly thinking, because that can also lead to anxiety, right? How many times have any of you gone to bed at night worried about something or thinking about something? I should have said this and I didn't say that, or I should have done that, or I should, blah, 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 right? And it ruins your sleep, because it is that thinking that, if we can't shut it down, can lead to anxiety, to nervousness, to worry, right? Those can be very negative. So we want to keep it in its proper perspective. We don't want to let it carry us away into an all night think fest. That is not going to be good. All right, questions, Con- comments. Let's see here. Oh, so, Terry, good morning. Teddy, good morning. J-Lo says, "Oh, wow. Wayan Brothers created that show." Oh, the Living Color? Ah. Thanks, Christine, because I remembered that. I didn't remember who did that, but Terry Strauss says my 25 is half white, half black. So 25, the gate 25. It can be black or it can be white or it can be red or it can be striped. So, it can't be half white, half black unless you're thinking, yeah, now for sure it's colored in, right? It's colored in right now. TD Hawk, good morning. B, not E. I missed something. Oh, could it also be beginner's mind as well? Yeah, absolutely, right? And in beginner's mind, there's got to be a certain amount of openness to receiving wisdom from either the universe or from other people around you, right? Not to overwrite your own wisdom, but to add to it, right? To sharpen it, that kind of thing. Lo, we need to catch up, Janet, so I can express something how I see them and it can possibly give you some epiphanies. I love it, Lo. Let me know when. And she says, haha, 17.5 is her pearl. Now, what she's talking about is the pearl is in the gene keys. And in the gene keys, we have these three different trails, let's say, through your human design or through your gene keys. Um, One is the activation sequence, which is really about the four pillars of who you are and what you're here to do. And then there's the Venus sequence, which is how you are here to be in relationship with others. And the third sequence is called the Pearl sequence, and it's about abundance and how you create prosperity for yourself, not just in terms of money, but general abundance. And so what she's saying is her pearl, the final piece in the puzzle of who she is at the 17 in the 5. She is here to share her wisdom with people. She is here to logically put into words what she sees as uh, anticipating for the future. So what you're saying there to me makes perfect sense, Lo. Chester's mom, thank you for this. I am seeing some family members today I have not seen in many years. Very helpful. Be very careful then, right? Don't trigger things if you can help it. Or if other people trigger you, which is always possible, you know what to do. Teddy, sun's out here in our neck of the woods. It's trying here. Lo, oh Janet, it would be great to do a course on how you will teach the first four pillars. That's exactly right. So let me just take an aside here. Next month, I am doing an introduction to astrology. It's going to be called Easy Peasy Astrology or something like that. And I taught this back in September last year, and it was fun. But unfortunately, a lot of the videos disappeared. So I'm redoing it. So some people who did that class last year, you've been invited already. You know who you are. You've been invited back. And the others of you, there's an introduction that will be a freebie. And then that will lead you to a series, a course that will be taught on the introduction to astrology. Then I'm going to repeat that, but in an intro to human design and then an intro to the gene keys. So all of this rolling out between now and the end of this year. So it's coming. And the first four pillars are your activation sequence or your human design incarnation cross, right? And it's really fabulous to study that and to really see who you are, because that's where it is right there. Um, TJ says, astrology for dummies like me. You are not a dummy. And here is something I've been really thinking about. I was listening this morning to my husband talking just generally, stuff, right? And maybe it's because Jupiter's in Gemini that I'm so open to hearing right now when people, and myself too, when we're saying things of a more negative sort, right? Like, just for example, like to say, oh, this coffee is to die for. Really? Do we really want to put that out there? Because remember, words have power. Words have bang to their buck. So we want to be watching our words. So when we're saying something like astrology for dummies, you're not a dummy, right? You just haven't been experienced in astrology. So while it's kind of tongue in cheek and cute to say astrology for dummies, remember you are not a dummy. That implies like you're stupid or in ignorant about this. And yeah, you might be, but we don't have to phrase it like that. We can say, I'm learning all about astrology. It's more positive. Um, okay, let's go on, shall we, to some of the transiting things that we want to talk about. Venus sextile Mars. Venus is in Cancer right now. And remember, she is the planet of relationships, of values, of worth, of money that we earn, love, beauty, attraction. And Mars is the planet of action and of desire and drive, right? Mars is the masculine pushing out energy, while Venus is the more feminine pushing in energy. So in a sextile, this is a balance or a harmonizing of these two great energies, the divine feminine and the divine masculine. So we have the potential for harmony in relationships as we have this emotional connection with Venus in Cancer, right? She's emphasizing the nurturing, the emotional bonds, the desire for harmony and beauty, even security in the relationships that we're a part of. So Venus in Cancer is encouraging the emotional connections with our loved ones. So Chester's mom, who's going to be connecting with, other relatives today that maybe she hasn't seen in a while. It's a great time for this. Venus really giving us that connection feeling. Mars in Taurus brings the steady determination, the approach that fosters that grounded reliability, the security, the stability is the big word here, right? And this combination supports the development then of enduring relationships built on strong connections, on mutual respect, that type of thing. So, while we have Venus in a very emotional place and Mars also in a sign that is sensual, so we have to have supportive actions. So the sextile aspect, the 60-degree relationship between them facilitates supportive actions, especially in when we're motivated by genuine care or affection with those people in our lives. We're likely to take steps then that enhance that emotional connection and that well being for ourselves and for others. So it's a really positive coming together. There's also practical, Taurus, sensitivity, Venus in Cancer or Cancer, that helps us to balance that idea of emotional sensitivity with practical action so we can address our emotional needs in a grounded, effective manner. Right. So, if, for example, emotionally you require some time alone, then Mars in this configuration will give you the opportunity to take the action that's necessary to nurture yourself. Or if it's the opposite, where somebody else needs that, then you can also, take the steps that help them recognize that for themselves. So, because we also have sensuality with this idea of Mars and Taurus, we have creative expression, using all of our senses to express ourselves, to explore new artistic endeavors, perhaps, or new creative outlets, heightening our sensuality, our need for the feeling of soft fabrics, perhaps, or the smell of beautiful things cooking, or uh, beautiful candles, or taking a long, luxurious hot bath, that kind of thing. Right. So we have the sensual pleasures, and the things that then bring us pleasure or comfort are heightened during this time. Now, we also have motivation for achievement here, and that might mean achievement in your business, in your home, in your work, in your relationships, that kind of thing, because Mars and Taurus brings us determination, perseverance, and Venus in Cancer, excuse me, adds that emotional motivation to secure that sort of enduring feel in those relationships and or our work or in our project or in our fill in the blank, right? The cooperative efforts between these two planets are really heightened at this point. The masculine and the feminine working in tandem as a team. Cooperation and teamwork are sort of the hallmarks here. Working toward a common good or a common goal can be particularly satisfying for the next few days while this is activating. So it enhances our relationships essentially, right? It balances our work with our emotional needs, and maybe pursuing goals becomes something that we can do with vigor or passion, right? Getting to where we want to be, where we want to go. And there are a couple of pitfalls, right? Venus, she's a benefic planet, and sometimes what we end up with is overindulgence. Not as big and bad as it can be if Jupiter's involved, but we have to balance pleasure, right? Enough of we have to balance the sensory pleasures with moderation, right? We don't need to, spend 10 hours in a bathtub. That's not good, right? Manage your comfort zones. Mars in Taurus. Remember, we've had a lot going on in Taurus over the last several months. And all of us with Uranus here in Taurus still, we have come face to face with where are we in a comfort zone? Where do we need to boot ourselves out, if you will? So, managing our comfort zones might be a challenge during Mars in Taurus because it can be resistant to change. Even though it's Mars, and he's action and he's a catalyst, we can still be very resistant here. So, ensure that you're not getting too comfortable and getting stagnant, and take that next step in the pursuit of your goals. Okay, don't just sit on your laurels, so to speak. Now, we also have to navigate emotional sensitivity during this period of time as well, right? Handling our emotions. Venus in Cancer can bring that heightened emotional sensitivity, heightened intuition, right? All of that. So we have to practice self care. We have to seek support if we're feeling like we're getting out of control. We have to be able to do that. If we're getting overwhelmed by emotions, it's time to step out from that, whatever that emotional situation is. And then Mars asking us to take constructive steps toward solving the problem, or helping us hopefully to avoid the impulsivity of emotional reactions. Focus on solutions instead of reaction to what is happening. All right. I hope all that makes sense for people. It is by far and away one of the better kinds of transits to have. So it's not something that I'm thinking, oh no, we have to, worry about. It's something I think that we want to engage in a very positive way. All right, let's go to Saturn retrograde. I'm really kind of I have Saturn retrograde in my natal chart, so maybe that's why to me it's not so daunting. But I want to talk about this retrograde period because it's significant because of where it begins in your human design. More so than where it is in your astrology. I was really kind of tickled by where it is right now in your human design. And we'll talk a lot more about this at some point, I'm sure, because the gate 22 is the gate that Saturn is sitting in right now, and the gate that he turns retrograde in. And he's literally retrograde from July or June 30th to November 16th. And for a chunk of that time, he's sitting at this gate 22. So that is called the gate of grace or graciousness. And it's really a place where we have this opportunity to heal our old wounds, to let go of illusions or delusions, right? Building a more solid and practical approach to our spiritual and our emotional growth. Because the gate 22 sits on the solar plexus, which in human design is the center for emotions. And it's huge, right? When we think about all the lessons that we have to learn around emotions and how the right use of emotion. So now he's retrograding in Pisces because that's the sign he's been in. So it becomes a significant time when he turns retrograde for us to reflect on the structures of our lives. Are they built on sand, or are they built on rock, right? Are they solid, or are they likely to collapse at the first challenge? It is a time for reflecting on our responsibilities. Have we taken appropriate responsibilities, or are we burdened by responsibilities that weren't ours in the first place? Or are we totally lacking in responsibility? And that also brings up the idea of boundaries. And do we have healthy boundaries, or do we have walls? right? Walls separate, boundaries help us stay true to ourselves. And then that's being blended, those are Saturnian themes. Those are being blended with Piscean themes of spirituality, of compassion, of artistry, of spirituality, of awakening the spirit within, encouraging us to have a deeper internal examination of what makes us tick. What are our fears? What are our limitations? What are the blocks that we are contending with? And what things have we abdicated our responsibility in taking care of over time? Right. Now, again, this isn't all going to happen tomorrow as Saturn turns into retrograde motion, but over the course of time, we may be grappling with these things. And it really depends, too, in your own personal chart where Saturn lies. Where's Pisces right now in your chart? What house is it in? Pisces for me is sitting in the 8th house. So this is very transformational energy in my own life that's happening. Notice I've seemingly had to contend with the death theme over and over again in the last several weeks, for sure, several months, maybe since the beginning of this year. So it could be significant when it turns into retrograde as the energy may shift, right? It shifts for us. So let's look at the symbolism first of Saturn in Pisces. So Saturn, of course, represents discipline and the responsibility, the structure, while Pisces is associated more with intuition, with spirit, with the nebulous, with the boundlessness energy. So Pisces influence tends to dissolve boundaries, which contrasts with Saturn's need to define and solidify, right? So we have like a conundrum going on with Saturn in Pisces in the first place, and then how does that take us into the retrograde period of time? Now, the impact of Saturn in Pisces often revolves, around a reality check in some way, regarding maybe our dreams or our goals, our ideals, how we show up in the world, how we are compassionate or empathetic or not. It is a test of our faith and ideals, and it's pushing us for more practical manifestation of Piscean characteristics like creativity and spirituality. It's really saying, like, put your money where your mouth is, or, right, walk your talk. That's another way we could look at that. Now, the nature of the retrograde. So, every planet that goes retrograde tends to symbolize a time of turning inward, right? Or of reevaluation or internalization of something, or a review time, right? So often when a planet turns retrograde, things that have been going on with that planet since its prior retrograde come into a reflective state for each one of us. So it's a period of time for us to reassess and refine our approaches. And now, so we already have had Pluto turn retrograde. Now Saturn is retrograde, then Neptune on Monday. So we're seeing these planets already that are taking us into a more internalized process of what have we been through and how do we want to apply new ideals or new ideas to our problems or to the world at large. So the interpretation with Saturn retrograde then in Pisces is focuses a shift towards reviewing our commitments, our responsibilities related to our ideals. Have you committed yourself to the wrong things? Or are you committed to the things that really are of an idealistic nature? Are they really true and authentic for you? We may have to take a look at that as well with our spiritual beliefs, with our creative pursuits, right? Pisces, creativity. So it's a time to reconsider how we deal with escapism, how we deal with fear in our lives, and how we deal with our spiritual health. Spiritual health is important, right? Because you're the embodiment of that spirit. So here are some of the potential manifestations over the course of these next several months while uh, Neptune or while God, while Saturn is retrograde, revisiting past issues. And it could be past issues related to spirituality, It could be issues related to creative blocks or unresolved compassion fatigue, like where have I been giving too much of myself away, offering a chance for us to address those situations in our life with more maturity or wisdom, right? This is all about the wisdom. And it gives us an opportunity to clarify our boundaries in both the emotional area and the spiritual area, right? Pisces is a water sign, and water is emotional energy. It is also ether, it is spiritual in nature. So it's a crucial time for us to define healthy boundaries, especially in our relationships and our spiritual communities. Where Pisces might encourage too much openness or merging without any boundaries, right? We've got to take a look at that. But it's also an opportunity for us to deepen our spiritual practices or redefine our spiritual practices to ensure that both are meaningful and structured. So we have structure and being added to formlessness or to spirit, right? We're kind of putting some boundaries around that so that we can move forward in a healthy way. So, spiritual discipline is a part of this, right? There's this need perhaps to incorporate more structure in your spiritual life. And it could mean setting regular times for meditation or joining a more structured spiritual group or defining what spiritual beliefs truly matter to you, are truly important to you. Right, versus the ones that you've just been taking on because somebody said something about you should be this way. Right. So now also if you're involved with the arts and we all are in some way, we are all creative beings. So use this time of Saturn retrograde to redefine or refine your creative processes. How do you create? What do you create? When do you create? And how much of your time are you devoting to that versus how much time are you devoted to, you know, escaping it. Look at where discipline can help you, right? To be more productive or where your creative process needs to be more free, right? Sometimes we're overly structured, and this gives us an opportunity to look at that structure and to release even some of our tendency to overstructure. Some of you Virgos, right? That are overly practical. Um, and on the other hand, it also gives us the time to structure framework if we've been too unstructured. So Saturn retrograde, very helpful with that. It also is a time for us. I feel like sometimes Saturn retrograde, especially when he's in Pisces, is a time where deception gets exposed, right? Where the underlying reason for something becomes exposed, right? It's not necessarily the secrets, but it's the motivation for something where it sounded really good on the surface. Suddenly, with Saturn in retrograde, the underbelly of it all gets exposed. So we can use this time of Saturn retrograde to become more aware of where we might be deceiving ourselves or where others might be deceiving us or where we've avoided the hard truths about ourselves and our condition or our actions. And Saturn's influence helps us face those problems squarely, like head on, and work toward resolution. This is not a time to beat yourself up. It's a time to find balance between the structure and form of Saturn and the fluidity of Piscean energy, especially in areas that are inherently sort of nebulous, like spirit, right? Like creativity. It's time to strengthen those foundations and then to um, make them more sustainable. This is a great Saturn word, sustainability, right? Creativity that becomes sustainable, a spiritual practice that is sustainable in troubled times, especially as we seem to be, headed for perhaps some struggling in the culture, societies that we are a part of. Now, Saturn retrograde at gate 22 is so fascinating to me because when you look this up, I have this wonderful book and I would suggest everybody get it if you're interested in human design. It's called The Book of Lines by Chetan Parkin, and it says a 21st century view of the I Ching which is called the Chinese Book of Changes. And if you look up these gates, the gate 22, and you look at the line it's in, because that's the different flavor of it's, think of the gate 22 as a highway, and each of the lines is a lane. So each lane has a little bit different flavor. And the flavor of this particular Saturn retrograde is in the 22, line 3. It's experiential, it's experimental, it is testing the waters, right? It's about experiences and about how we manage ourselves in those experiences. Now, the 22-3 is called enchanting, grace in perfection, a charmed life, good fortune. And it says, you embody grace as all things wondrous, aligning yourself with simple universal truths. And in Saturn at that particular gate and line has special meaning, right? It's got a special meaning of aligning emotional energy and a perception that empowers your inner radiance. Chew on those words for a while. You align emotional energy and a perception that empowers your inner radiance. Grace, right? This is all about grace. And with Saturn here, you're aligning that emotional energy with what empowers you, not with what disempowers you. Sounds so easy, doesn't it? All right, quickly, let's talk about transiting Mercury in Cancer, sextile Uranus and Taurus. That is happening. I do believe that was something on Saturday that occurs. And again, overlapping the Venus sextile Mars. So we have two, transiting aspect patterns that are, pretty supportive. And the key theme here, remember, Mercury rules the mind of the human, right? The human mind, our thinking processes, how we learn, how we teach, what we teach, right? And Uranus is the higher octave of that. It is the higher mind. It is universal mind. It is God mind, source mind, however you want to look at that. And so we have the potential for these innovative, creative, unexpected ideas to come in and meet up with the Mercury mind, the human mind, that then harmonizes the brilliance of the idea with the ability to take action on it or do something about it with Mercury in the sign of Cancer. So we have innovative communication, perhaps, because both of them are about communication, one from the higher self or from, out there, and the other one from in here, right? From inside. So we have both of these coming together that might spark some creative ideas. I believe it was probably a Mercury sextile Uranus the day that I had this lightning bolt moment of creating Mystic Moon, which was a metaphysical bookstore that I owned years ago. It's how I got my start really in expressing all things metaphysical. It brings that spark, but not necessarily all of the ideas have an outline. Like, it dumps in with this, like, giant aha moment of, "Oh, that's what I'm gonna do," but then it's up to Mercury here to lay the template, the foundation for how it is your idea will be communicated or brought to reality. There's also emotional intelligence here, along with practicality. Mercury is in Cancer, and the practicality part from Uranus in Taurus, right? So we are bringing these two things together. So we may have some intuitive insights. We may have to take a balanced approach, balancing our intuition with our logic, which, most of us, because that's how we've been taught, we default to logic, ignoring that there's this whole other part of us that's intuitive, that is in knowingness, that sometimes doesn't know how it knows, but it just knows, even if it's against logic, right? So we are trying to balance these great energies of how we use our intellect and how we use our minds. And of course, be open to new ideas. I there probably isn't one of you out there who isn't going to come up with something brilliant or feel like you've had this brilliant aha or seen a new way to do something or how to grapple with an old devil, right? How does that saying go? But anyway, be open to new ideas. Uranus in Taurus promotes that adaptability rather than that complacency or that staying put or that being in a comfort zone. You are opening up to these new ideas and how that might play out for you in the future. It offers up the potential for flexible thinking. thinking outside of the box. Uranus is ruling planet for Aquarius, the sign of thinking outside of the box. So it could be really impactful for us this weekend with that particular transit. We do have to watch out for balancing emotional overwhelm and logical rigidity. I guess that's what I was kind of saying before, is right. Not everything is going to be able to be dealt with in a logical way, right? There are just some things that don't. But we might also need to learn how to manage unexpected changes. Anytime we see Uranus involved with another planet, it brings unexpectedness to us. So be open to learning and growing through new experiences. And then later in the weekend, we have the moon moving into Taurus. Now I'm speeding up because we are at 9 o'clock already. And I do want to draw a card. What should we draw? I'm going to draw us an animal card, I think, this time. Um, I don't know. I always like to use my new cards too. So I'm going to draw 2 cards, even though we're at 9 o'clock. And let's do the animal card first to see what wisdom we can get from the animal kingdom. And the reason I'm doing this is pretty deliberate, because the 22, where Saturn is in retrograde, links us in some ways to the mammals, to the mammalian traits. So or the animal kingdom. All right. Oh, Lordy. Now, which one am I going to pick? Because 2 fell out. Uh, one is ant spirit, and it was upside down. And it says, time to collaborate. Well, we did talk about collaboration a couple of times. So there's that. But now I got to get this one. It fell down into the box. And it was nightingale spirit. Love is all around. And it was upside down as well. So let's see what those 2 cards mean. I don't think I've ever had nightingale spirit. Ant is the very first card of the deck. So also maybe thinking of an initiation of something, something new, right? Something to start. And it says, time to collaborate. And as a protection message, because it was upside down, it says, do you really believe that you have to do everything yourself? Do you believe that somehow any help you get will be disappointing or not good enough? Perhaps it's time to address your issues of control and bias toward the negative. Interesting, because the North Node is at the gate of control, and that control needing to be more like self regulation. It doesn't matter where or why you came to be pessimistic or mistrustful. The fact that ant spirit is showing up now is a sign that you have an opportunity to heal and to relearn to trust others will show up for you in a genuine way. Ant spirit wants you to remember that your expectations and limiting beliefs are a vibrational offering that draws in the opposite of what you desire. Spirit wants to help you and will send collaborative partners your way. It's time to see the universe as conscious and connected, loving and helpful. But you must participate in this activity of co creation. Creating reality is not just about dreaming. If you are feeling orphaned from community, reach out and communicate. If you feel vulnerable, know that being present in your vulnerability can help you draw in someone who wants to assist you. Trust in your partnership with spirit, and your outer conditions will start to reflect that. Then you will see the miracles waiting for you, including partners who appear ready to lend a hand. I love it. Okay, 41 is nightingale spirit. And also upside down, it was love is all around. In protection, it says, the darker the skies, the more it seems the dawn will never appear. But Nightingale Spirit is here to remind you that the sun will shine again. You will soon feel the love and notice the abundance that surrounds you. Sing now, put on some music, or simply sing in the empty space, for finding the light within and giving it voice will give rise to hope and help you begin to hear the call of another who, like you, was beginning to fear the light would never come. Bring the light into the darkness with love from within. Give it a voice and know that daybreak will be here soon. Love it. Ant and Nightingale. 2 good cards. Okay, I'm guessing because 2 cards fell out of one deck that that's all I really need to do. But thank you all for joining me this morning. I will see you on Monday, and we'll talk about Neptune retrograde and Mercury moving into Leo, and a couple of other big things that are coming up for the week ahead. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.